This week on The Futurists, Mohamed Alkhatib.
We look at competition from Saudi Arabia as an advantage because as Saudi Arabia attracts people to Saudi Arabia, by default, they're going to come to Dubai and vice versa, right? So although it's a competition and we're competing to be who's going to be number one, but we still look at it as an advantage from an optimistic perspective.
Hey there, welcome back to The Futurist. I'm Rob Terzic with my co-host, Brett King. Hi, Brett.
Hey, how you doing?
Great, thanks. You're on the road again?
I have to apologize in advance. Well, I mean, you're
in my part of
California.
World, same time zone, first time.
Struggling a little bit with a bit of man flu today, so...
too much travel. Well, we're going to talk all about that today. You've been working very hard. So our guest today is a close friend and a colleague. So Mohamed is the CEO of the Futurists company in the UAE. It's the Futurist Event Management Company.
Yes.
And we're all just coming off of this incredible rush that we had last week in Dubai.
It was wonderful.
Where Brett and Mo gathered together some of the world's leading futurists. We had visitors from more than 33 cities around the world and across many different sectors of the economy. So it was a great event because it brought together people from people who are experts in the subjects of energy, outer space, transportation, economics, banking, the future of finance, cryptocurrency. We also had people talking about environment and environmental refugees or eco-refugees. It was a broad number of topics. Of course, AI, just like it is on the show, was a through line. It came up in just about every session, almost like a bad penny, just keeps turning up. And it was great dialogue because he had so many different perspectives from around the world. This is a project that Brett's been working on for more than a year, and Brett and Mohamed organized the company about a year ago to start to do these events, not just in Dubai, but around the world. So, Mohamed, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here. I'm excited to have a chance to talk to you and introduce you to our fans who are listening.
Oh, thanks, Rob. It's great to be here. Finally, actually. We've been, communicating for about 2 years now, me, you, and Brett?
Yeah, mostly on WhatsApp. I know, it's so funny.
True.
It's such a thin kind of relationship. It was really fun to see you and work with you alongside in person. And I have to hand it to you. Congratulations on a first event that was really a smashing success.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. That was a lot of hard work. In the back end between you, me, Brett, and everybody really on the team have put in a lot of time and a lot of work into getting this to be the success that it was. I mean, you've been there. You were there. You saw the reactions.
Yeah, and I've certainly done plenty of events, so it always seems to take a lot more effort than at the end than when you were planning it in the first place.
That's true.
This was a particularly long one because we kind of started one way and then it evolved.
Yes.
So for the folks who are listening, the event initially we had envisioned a smallish event, around 300 attendees. Ultimately, what do we have, Mohamed? Something like 1,300 registered attendees.
Yeah, about 1,300 registrations, and the attendees were about 1,000 over the 2 days.
Incredible.
So that was incredible, yeah.
So that was, we way overshot our expectations.
Yeah.
And as a result, we had to put it in a better venue. But that was actually kind of a blessing in the sense that we went to the Jumeirah Beach Hotel, which is a very nice hotel, but it's in the beach district. So it's a little bit different from downtown Dubai. Everybody seems to be familiar with that gigantic tower and the big shopping mall in the middle of Dubai. There's a little bit out in the beach, but actually it's kind of a cool neighborhood, and the hotel itself was splendid. It was just great.
I mean, that hotel is one of the classics in Dubai. Actually, if you go to any souvenir shops, that is the hotel that they would give you.
And it's next to that thing, I'm trying to think, the Burj Al Arab, which is the building that looks like a giant sail and kind of evokes the sailing past of Dubai back when it was a fishing village.
The world's only 7-star hotel, I think, is what.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow. Well, it sure seemed like that. And then, and the conference facilities were outstanding. And that actually matters because sometimes when you're trying to attract an audience to an event, you want to send a signal to them about the quality of the event. And it really matters that you're having the event at a quality venue. And the conference center there is outstanding in every way. And I mean, down to like the acoustics were so clear. You could hear it so clearly. So Brett, unfortunately, is calling in from a hotel as he's always traveling, and he just dropped out. He'll be back on in a second. He's connecting by Wi-Fi. But in the meantime, Mo, tell me a little bit about the goals. As you started planning out the event, what were some of the things you were hoping to achieve?
Well, we remember the idea was me and Brett first met, we had this conversation that he wanted to get his futurist friends to come to Dubai, and that was sort of the whole the whole idea that put in everything into motion. And then we thought, okay, so now that we've created this platform and you with the podcast and the network, what do we want to go? What do we want to do? What do we want to get out of this event in Dubai? And Dubai is positioning itself and the UAE as the country or the city of the future. It just fit perfectly, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
it
really
seems
true.
like a perfect fit.
Let's expand a little bit about that vision of the UAE as the country of the future, and certainly Dubai is positioning itself as the city of the future. It's funny because when we started organizing the event, I was talking to some people and invited some speakers, and a couple of people pushed back on me, and they said, "Why Dubai?" They didn't see it as like a futuristic city, and I said, "Name one city in North America that's got as much going on as Dubai." That's quite hard to do. Certainly, people say New York. People might say Los Angeles, not so many. San Francisco because of technology in the Bay Area, sure. But those are kind of like, well, first of all, those cities are not necessarily the future. When you go to New York, it certainly feels like it's from the 1930s. And they're somewhat dysfunctional in the sense that most American infrastructure is outdated. But they're also, in some respects, one-note towns because New York is very focused on finance. San Francisco is very focused on tech. And what's interesting to me about visiting Dubai and then broadly the UAE, the whole country, is there's a diversity there. Dubai wants to bite off as many pieces of the future as it possibly can. And that's really evident when you're there. So let's take a second and talk a little bit about that because I think some of the folks listening might appreciate understanding why Dubai and tell me a little bit about Dubai. It seems to me in 1966, Dubai was a little fishing village. It was a fishing village that had people diving for pearls, I suppose. That was like the one interesting thing, the one notable thing. But it wasn't really a major metropolitan area then.
No, it wasn't. But the funny fact about Dubai was always the center. So a lot of trade was going through Dubai
That's true.
even back in the 60s. So from
That's true.
India, because of the geographical position. So
And
Dubai
that
has
goes back.
always
That goes
been,
back to
right?
the Silk Road and yeah, back to Indian traders and even the Empire of Oman. That expanded all the way down the coast of Africa. So there's 1,000 years or more of trading history. That's true,
Yeah.
and it's a
They
very
sort of built
conveniently.
up all that.
It's situated right between. If you look at a world map, you'll see that Dubai is kind of right in the middle of India and Africa. So any trade going that way would tend to pass through that neighborhood. But until the 1970s, the U.S. had a great partner in Iran, a very reliable partner in
Yes.
Iran, and did a lot of business there. But what happened is, I think, quite amazing story, really. In the late 1960s, in Dubai, plans came forward to build one of the world's largest man-made ports, a container shipping port,
Yes.
so to build on that old history of shipping and trade, but the old style of shipping, where you needed stevedores and dock workers to transfer goods.
Yeah.
Uh, the leadership in Dubai focused on containers as the future, and they made a big bet on that. They built this huge port. They actually built two of them, and just as those ports came online, is the time when the Iranian Revolution happened. Then the U.S. got kicked out of Iran, and suddenly global trade and global business needed another place to do business in the Persian Gulf, and the timing was perfect. And the growth of Dubai, you can see it's from that point on, the city began to boom. The other great thing that the other futuristic idea was open skies, turning the airport into a hub for aircraft. Prior to the 1980s, many airports charged landing fees. And I guess the Emir said, no, we're not going to charge. We're going to waive the landing fee so that we can attract air travel and turn our airport into a hub. And again, it's geographically positioned to be a great place to land, either to transfer to another flight or to refuel. And so, again, positioning Dubai as a multimodal hub, not just for container shipping from the sea, but also from the air. And these are two things that really catapulted the city forward. And of course, with trade comes finance, and then with finance and energy. Let's not forget energy, because you need a shipping port for to export the energy. But all these factors together created Dubai, the modern Dubai that we know. It's a relatively recent phenomenon. And of course, the pace of growth continues. I was stunned just to see the difference from last time I visited, how much new construction was going on, particularly around the marina.
Right.
It's astounding. It seems like Dubai is just going to keep going down the coast. It's going to grow and grow.
Yeah, I mean that's the idea, right? This is the whole entire thing about Dubai. Whenever you're here, I don't know if you felt it, Rob, but time feels different. Everything is just fast paced, right?
Yeah.
That is what it feels like. Like the event felt just like that, and 2 days we're done.
Yeah,
I
that was a
mean,
pretty intense ride.
yeah, and that's the
And you're
thing.
right.
This is how life is in Dubai. It's
There's also a
that's what it
boldness and a
is.
brashness I sense there, sort of a willingness to embrace the future. An example of that would be the Burj Dubai, the tall tower, and that's the
Yeah, Burj
Burj
Khalifa. Yeah, Burj
Burj
Khalifa.
Khalifa.
Yes,
Thank you. Yes,
yes.
that's right. So this is the tallest building in the world. It's a bold building. At one point, it was all covered with LEDs. It was also the world's largest video wall,
It still is.
visible from a mile away.
I think it still is.
So it's really quite an extraordinary statement there. That's when you build tall buildings in the center of your city, and that's certainly not the only tall building. That city's got a huge skyline. You're setting a statement. You're saying a statement to the world. It's like a vision of the future. But it's kind of neat to see it rise in real time from the sea, just growing at the seashore. This city is expanding. Now, is that true across the UAE? I know there's a lot going on in Abu Dhabi as well. But tell me about the rest of the country.
Yes, so Abu Dhabi is also positioning itself similar to Dubai, being the future of finance. Longevity is a big thing that is happening in Abu Dhabi now. There's a lot of focus on gene therapy, genomics, and longevity in general, and AI. So Abu Dhabi is really positioning itself as the sort of global hub of artificial intelligence in the world. You go to the other Emirates, so you have Sharjah, Al Quwain, Ajman, Fujairah, and Ras Al Khaimah. And so those are more, although they have a lot of things going on. Sharjah, for example, is sort of positioning itself as the cultural aspect of Dubai. So if you go to Sharjah, you're going to see the old Emirates. So more of cultural focus,
Cool.
more
Sort of
of
like
yes,
Kyoto is to Tokyo in Japan.
yes, exactly,
That's
exactly.
smart. That's a good idea to preserve some of the past. That's a nice
Yes.
idea. So it's not all futuristic. Brett, we've been catching up a little bit about the history of Dubai and the rise of Dubai as a global trade hub, and then how the UAE is positioning itself as the country of the future. I think that comes as news to some of the folks that are listening to the show. And Brett, you've been going there quite a lot lately. In fact, you've been involved as a futurist in the UAE. Can you tell us your
Sure.
perspectives about the UAE as the country of the future?
Well, I think a lot of this comes back to cultural and technical agility. We've spoken about that a few times, but, if I was to pick, the top 3 or 4 future-focused economies in the world, obviously China is one. And then I'd put UAE and South Korea and Saudi Arabia up there in terms of, focus on the future. You could say Japan as well with robotics and so forth, but again, Japan also has to live in the present. But the US and Europe, that we're tending to look back in the past, like the Make America Great Again is an example of that. So the future is seen with some trepidation. But in the UAE, it's seen as a mechanism to really differentiate the market. And it has been for at least the last decade. So as a result, you have a lot less friction on projects that are pushing Dubai towards the future, and you have a lot more policy that is, really aimed at these things. So, for example, to illustrate, we have at the moment a digital identity push in the UK, and there's a lot of protests about that. There's a lot of pushback by the citizens in the UK on that. Well, Dubai's had this for, 10 years, Mohammed?
Yeah, about 10.
The Emirates
Yeah.
ID?
Yes,
And
the EID has been about 10.
yeah, and living in that environment as a citizen, or not a citizen, as a resident of the UAE, it just makes life so much easier. Everything is connected. You can get access to your healthcare records. Everything is immediately accessible for you, and it just really, with the government, they have this zero bureaucracy initiative now, and a big part of it is just being connected like that. So, the mindset of people living in the UAE and of the government is we want to push towards the future, the optimal future for people living in Dubai. And, that includes all of the latest technologies. There's a 5 gigawatt OpenAI data center being built there.
Yes.
There's new solar initiatives being built there. We're doing next generation healthcare. There's a massive AI investment structure there with G42 and other players. So, it really is set up and aligned to be focused on, future development.
I get that sense when I visit. There's a feeling of optimism that's palpable. Like you notice it when you talk to people. They're open to new ideas. They're excited about them. They see that that's something they can go ahead and do. I say that because I'm here in California, where I would say that the sunny optimism that used to characterize Californians is fading somewhat right now because of political pressures, social challenges. There's a lot of cultural warfare going on in the United States, and that causes people to feel confusion, doubt, uncertainty about the future. And so where that used to be an American characteristic, I think you're starting to see other countries around the world move into the vacuum of American leadership. And Dubai and the UAE, by extension, they're clearly positioning themselves to take advantage of the U.S. as it falters, maybe gives up on leadership, steps back from core research or fundamental research. They're leaving openings for other countries to come in and say, we wish to be one of the leaders in that space. I think Stargate is a good example of that.
Yeah. But part of what we wanted to do with the Futurists Summit is bring some of the top talent to Dubai, demonstrate that we could do that, and then we met with the government in the days following the event, and they're very keen to bring these individuals back to Dubai. They're very keen to get them injected into policy and injected into adaptive projects and so forth. They really see this as an opportunity to take advantage of what's happening in the US, particularly with NSF funding and things like that, to bring these leaders to Dubai and give them access to funding and give them access to talent there.
And I think we found that when we talked to speakers, just about everyone we spoke to was like, yeah, Dubai sounds great. That makes sense. They didn't require an explanation or any kind of context. Mohammed, talk a little bit about competition with Saudi Arabia right next door, who is also making incredible investments, sometimes heroic investments in things like NEOM and the line, like really trying to reinvent what a city is and so forth. But Saudi has similar ambitions. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia would like to be a leader in artificial intelligence and so on. Does that help? I think that maybe gives a little bit of a healthy competition.
Oh, no, I think we look at competition from Saudi Arabia as an advantage because as Saudi Arabia attracts people to Saudi Arabia, by default, they're going to come to Dubai and vice versa, right? So although it's a competition and we're competing to be who's going to be number one, but we still look at it as an advantage from an optimistic perspective.
And in some ways, that's elevating the whole region, the whole Gulf area. All the other countries in the Gulf Cooperation Council kind of are lifted by default.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's true. I certainly think over the last few years you've had obviously an injection into real estate and events, Qatar with the World Cup and so forth. But at the same time, there isn't what's the opposite to a brain drain? There's a brain explosion in the GCC. Yeah, brain overflow.
That's true.
Lots of talent coming in, and the even in Saudi now with the entrepreneur visa, and the UAE has the gold visa, we're they're competing for bringing talent in. There's about 60 economies around the world that are competing on immigration right now, but Dubai particularly has been doing this now for a few years, and attracting talent from all over the world.
It's funny when you're in Dubai, the people that you meet, the people you tend to meet aren't Emiratis. They're foreigners, right? It's a city filled with foreigners. Some overwhelming percentage of the residents there are not native-born folks.
Yeah, I think in Dubai, the population is about 5 million, and the citizens are only 200,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's 11 million population in UAE and 2.2 million Emiratis. So but Dubai in particular is very that would be unthinkable in a country like the US or the UK right now. But the UAE realizes that attracting this talent is bringing prosperity to the country and pushing the country forward in a way that wouldn't be possible without immigration.
Now, that's a pretty strong contrast to the United States, where we're about to impose a $100,000 fee on every one of the specially talented worker visas. There's a special category of visa for American workers who come from other countries.
H-1B, right? Yeah.
The H-1B, right. And so that's kind of a prized visa. To get that visa is a very important thing. It gives you an opportunity to have a career in the tech industry. That $100,000 toll is meant to somehow preserve American jobs or advance native-born Americans into those positions. I'm not quite sure it's going to have that effect because very typically the people who get H-1Bs are unique. They're demonstrably unique. You have to show that they're unique. Meanwhile, you have the government in the UAE is saying, that's interesting. We would like to attract some of those folks over here.
Yeah.
So I think what we're seeing is like the United States has lost its sense of leadership, or at least it's not as committed to world leadership as it had been in the past and attracting people to the mecca of, technology, for instance. Instead, now there's an opening for other countries to step up. It's quite obvious to me that's happening in the UAE.
Having said
the
that,
US sort of,
sorry, go ahead.
sorry, Brett. I was just wanted to add to that point. Isn't the US sort of putting that fee also goes in and sort of they're expecting that a lot of jobs are going to be offset by AI and automation, and that's why they're putting the fee on the H-1B visa, right? That's what I was.
Yeah, but even that is a signal of fear, right?
Yeah.
That's another signal of fear, right? That's not a commitment to AI. That's fear of AI. So we're trying to drop the drawbridges and reduce the number of workers so that we can preserve jobs. And I think the sense that I get in the UAE is like, hey, there's a lot of work to go around, and we're looking for more talented people to come in and do it. To me, that's a growth characteristic, right? That indicates ambitions for the future. Anyway, so it's quite a novel contrast, and therefore it's a very good setting for an event like the one we did. Like Brett said, the goal here was to show that we could attract speakers from around the world. We did it. After the break, we'll talk a little bit about the speakers, the agenda, the topics, and some of the things that we discussed at the event, and some of the things we learned that we'll try to do differently next time, I suppose. But right now, let's take a little break, and then we'll come back right after this. You're listening to The Futurists, and this week our guest is our partner in Dubai, Mohamed Alkhatib. See you in just a minute.
Provoke Media is proud to sponsor, produce, and support the Futurist podcast. Provoke.fm is a global podcast network and content creation company with the world's leading fintech podcast and radio show, Breaking Banks. And of course, its spin-off podcast, Breaking Banks Europe, Breaking Banks Asia Pacific. But we also produce the official Finovate podcast, Tech on Reg, and Emerge Everywhere, the podcast of the Financial Health Network. For information about all our podcasts, go to provoke.fm or check out Breaking Banks, the world's #1 fintech podcast and radio show.
And we're back. This is The Futurists, and this week, Brett and I are talking to our partner in Dubai, Mohamed Alkhatib. Mohamed is the guy who is running our business, our events business in the UAE, and played an instrumental role in helping us attract local partners and make that show happen. I have to underscore how hard it is to do that job. There's a lot that has to happen on the ground. It's one thing to invite speakers from around the world. That's a big undertaking. We managed to do that quite well, but also to pull all the events together. So Mo, it was great fun working with you. It was great fun to see your team at work, and what a highly professional crew. It was really, truly one of the most impressive sound stages I've been on. That 90-foot video wall was astonishing to look at, and it looked, I wanted to look really professional.
When we designed this and talked about this, Mohamed, you'll remember I from the outset, I wanted this big screen because I wanted people to, feel like they're walking into the future. And the best reaction they had
was illuminated.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that is the sense that they got too. Like a lot of the feedback was like, we were never in a event such as this. We just felt it. We experienced what the future would look like. And that was really a lot because of the curved screen that we have. That was really huge.
Yeah, so sort of immersed in the environment. Yeah. And the best speakers took advantage of that to put up a whole wall display. So for the folks who are listening, it's hard to talk about this because it's such a strong visual, you really want to see it. But imagine as you're walking in from the beautiful lobby, the reception lobby, into this conference room, even as you were coming in, you would see this brilliantly glowing wall that covered the entire wall. And 90 feet is really large inside of a conference room. Basically, it's wall-to-wall video. Yeah. And it went all the way down to the deck that the speakers were standing on. So basically, it was just a gigantic living video wall. And we used it in a number of interesting ways. For a starter, Brian Cox, a professor from the UK, who's probably the leading commentator on deep space in the UK and astrophysics. He is a practicing astrophysics.
One of the world's leading science communicators, for sure.
Yeah, he
He
is.
did. He zoomed in for a live call with Brett. Now, this is a risky thing to do, a live Zoom call on stage in front of a live audience of several hundred, maybe 1,000 people in the room. Worked out brilliantly. First, he was superb on camera. It felt very intimate because he was really close to the camera, so his head was right there, but it felt like he was talking to you personally.
Yeah, that's true.
And man, it was a great talk. He talked about black holes, started with that as his theme, and then over the course of his conversation, led it to the future of humanity. It was quite an astonishing thing. What I liked best about it is he broke it down into plain English that anyone could understand. So as long as you had decent English, you could follow everything he was saying. And then he was very responsive as well. So in the Q&A session with Brett afterwards, it felt very intimate, like he was live and was present. But that was one reason why we had that gigantic video walls, to make his video quite vivid and feel like
His
he was
screens were amazing. Like, this is the thing, is he really used all of that real estate. He had that black hole flyby. He had the
What was the size of
Clark
that?
sphere or whatever. So
What was
the total resolution was 8,000 by 1,400. But the size of that video that he did, the black hole flyby,
like 8 seconds,
that in
like
itself was 9 gig, I think.
Yeah, 9 gig for like 8
Yeah.
second video. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
So
very,
super
very high.
high resolution graphics really do make a difference when you have a wall of that clarity. We then had a number of other speakers. We talked about geopolitics. We talked about the future of security. Those were good plenary sessions. And then Pavlos Holman joined us. Pavlos has been a guest on the show several
He did a
times.
great job.
He's fun.
Yeah.
He's a fun guy because he's a very knowledgeable technologist. He styles himself a hacker, but he's also a business person, and he's an investor, and he's willing to put his money where his mouth is. And so he talked about where he makes his decisions about the future. And I thought that was quite cool. It was like his personal take on the future, person who can commit to it personally through his own skills and his financial resources. So that was a powerful talk as well. And in the afternoon, we broke into tracks. And so in the afternoon, we had 2 sessions running. One in a small room upstairs, a smaller but very intimate and really great acoustics room. And then downstairs in the main stage. And that way we were able to cover a lot more topics. And in the afternoon, we talked about biotech, longevity, synthetic biology. These are themes that are very relevant to the future of the UAE, particularly, as Mohamed said, in Abu Dhabi, where they're making a push in that direction. We've talked about synthetic biology and biotech on this show quite a lot. But in the United States, again, you don't seem to sense that there's this like national consensus towards things like programmable biology. There's resistance to it. There's objections. Some people object on religious grounds. Some people object on ethical grounds and so forth. What that tends to mean is if there's friction, the research and investment is just going to go to another country. And once again, the UAE is there with open arms saying, cool, you guys aren't interested, we'll take it here because we're quite interested in that. We'd like to accelerate research into biotech. Brett, I think
We had Zoltan Istvan, who's of course the running for.
He's running for governor here.
Gubernatorial
Yeah, he is, right?
in California. But again, a very future-focused guy. Talks a lot about transhumanism and longevity. So he had a chat on longevity escape velocity, and our friend Andrew Hessel, Rob, who joined, and talked about how we're going to do that. How we're going to do that with gene therapy and genetics, and that was a fascinating talk. And then we had Tomo Marjanovic, who was with Aspire Rejuvenation, so actually running a longevity clinic in Miami and Dubai, actually 6 longevity clinics now in the US. So, it's great to have that depth of capabilities. And then, of course, on the other stream, we had some of the emerging technology stuff, robotics and more AI. But it was a really solid group.
Stable coins, future finance. Future economies, smart infrastructure, smart cities. I had a really lively session about turning Dubai into a smart city. We did like a live experiment on stage. Mo, you joined me. It was great fun.
Yeah.
We had a couple different people. Vincent Heilbronn is an expert in autonomous vehicles. Pablo's joined us because he knows a lot about simulations. We said, all right, how would we pull all these technologies together and apply them, for instance, to the city of Dubai to turn it into a truly smart city? That was a lively conversation, and the audience loved it because they got to see people think on their feet. It's one thing to see somebody do a canned speech that they've rehearsed and prepared. That can be very impressive. We had several of those. They were great. But it's another thing to put the speakers on the spot and have them answer questions that they off the cuff as they're on the fly. Mo, how did you like that session? I got some great feedback afterwards.
Oh, me too. I think that was one of the best, the better sessions we had on the event, Rob, because it was just right off the top, right?
Yeah.
So nobody rehearsed for it. We were just like, okay, let's just have a conversation about.
When we
where
brought it
should
right
go
home
next.
to Dubai, it's like, so how would you apply these technologies to building a digital twin of the city and automating and extending the automation they already have at the seaport, for instance, to the airport? I heard afterwards from the people at the airport. I heard from the folks, some of the folks that are involved in local real estate development, city government, city politics there. So there was quite a lot of local interest in that subject because once again, it's like, you see the signal. People in the UAE, the Emiratis, they're like, we're open for business here. You guys have ideas? We want to hear more about that. We want to hear how that applies in this part of the world.
Yeah, the Dubai Airport Free Zone actually
they
reached
reached
out
out to
after
me.
the event to do an event for them as well. So that obviously connected with that session.
That's a cool idea. It would be fun to follow up on that because I thought that resonated really well. It was a nice way to land the first day. And then the second day, we focused on space, and this is one of I would say it was one of the passion projects for Brett. He's a gigantic space fan, and he was thrilled to convince Commander Scott Kelly, the former NASA commander, who at one point had spent the longest time of any American in space as the commander of the ISS, the space station, and superb speaker. What a gracious person as well. Like such a polite, well-mannered, well-spoken person. But he wasn't the only space expert we had. We also had the head of the space agency from the UAE. And honestly, I got to tell you guys, I didn't know there was a space agency in the UAE. And I was stunned to learn that there's actually a mission planned, that asteroid mission where, here in California, people have been talking about mining asteroids for 20 years, but they haven't done anything about it. And meanwhile, here's the UAE stepping up saying, yeah, with our space program, we're going after an asteroid. We're going to be hauling down tons of platinum and bringing it back to planet Earth. Mo, talk a little bit about that session with the space agency from the UAE and also
Maybe tell us how it came about that we got the Director General of the space agency, Mohamed.
Oh yeah, so
Because
that
you were
was
involved in that.
so that was an interesting conversation. So I started this conversation with actually through my wife's cousin who and so she works at the UAE Space Agency, and I pitched her and I was like, hey, we're putting up this event. We have this amazing panel about we called it the Final Frontier, which is about space exploration. Would you guys be willing to be involved in this? And she was like, sure, let me pitch it. And that's how we got His Excellency to come in, and he was really, really happy. He was super excited. He
was great.
He was here before the panel. Actually, we had a small closed session up in the TV and the Majlis, right, with the Scott Kelly, and we also got the European agency to be involved as well. So Tommaso,
ESA,
the head of mechanical from the head of mechanical engineering, and so that panel was, I think, one of the highest rated panels of the entire summit, Brett, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It was what was great is that beforehand, when they got the chance to chat and they were just talking about stuff and riffing, and we had all of these questions that had to be agreed on in advance for the Director General, and I said, you guys, this is the panel. We're having the panel right here. If we can have this type of conversation, it's going to be a lot more valuable. Is that okay with you? And they all were like, yeah, sure. Scott was very comfortable with that. Even Tommaso from ESA, Tommaso afterwards, like, this is the best panel I've ever been on, for me.
Yeah,
so it was great. And the director did a great job really highlighting what is happening in the UAE with space and how space is sort of a key pillar of scientific achievement in the UAE. Having a real life, astronaut on stage who has been so instrumental in extending.
That panel had all three varieties, right? So we had an astronaut, we had the policy guy, and then we had the engineer.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we have the nerd, of course.
That's right. There was a lot of credibility in that session. I thought
I was definitely nerding out.
Yeah.
I thought it was really great because sometimes Tommaso from the European Space Agency would lapse into bureaucratic speak because he has to. That's part of the role, right? And Scott Kelly would gently poke fun. He would make a joke, and brought it back to like normal speech. I thought that was quite useful. And then that gave a relaxed context so that His Excellency could speak up a little bit as well and participate and without with much formality. So Brett, you did a good job
We
of
had some good
moderating.
laughs on that channel. I mean, on that panel, we had some good laughs. It was
Yeah.
great.
It was nicely done. And it felt very authentic, but a powerful statement for the UAE to be in the presence of both the European Space Agency and a representative from NASA. That's quite a statement. It shows you that
Playing as
the
a
UAE
partner.
has grand ambitions. It's stepping up.
Exactly.
And then we continued. We carried on. We had a whole session on general artificial intelligence. Now, the subject of artificial general intelligence, or AGI, is a little controversial. It comes up from time to time on this podcast. Some people take it as a given. Other people are skeptical. We had a great talk by Ramez Nam. I think, in my opinion, it was the best presentation at the whole event because Ramez is a very data-driven guy. People probably know him. He's been a guest on the show. He's an expert in energy. But because he's an expert in energy and has been forecasting for instance, the exponential decrease in cost in solar for years, and he's been very accurate about that, that's led him to becoming an expert on artificial intelligence because really AI can be considered, energy times computer power times
Exactly.
algorithms.
Exactly.
That's AI. And so if you understand energy, you can understand some of the cost drivers and some of the capabilities. Now, he gave a great presentation because he showed fact after fact after fact of trends where AI is starting to plateau. The progress is starting to plateau. It's not stopping, but what's happening is it costs exponentially more energy and compute power to squeeze out just a single digit increase in performance in AI models. And so he cast some real serious skeptical doubt over the concept of artificial general intelligence in his talk because he said, look, the path we're on, I don't see how we're going to get there. And he didn't just have one or two reasons. He showed 20 different reasons why that's going to be very difficult to achieve with the current path. Now, he didn't rule out that there might be some breakthrough or another approach. And Mohammed, he also pointed out something that I did not know. Not only is the UAE going to have some of the most powerful compute power in the world in that new Stargate data center, it will put them on par with a country like the UK in terms of compute power. But that's not all. The UAE is also one of the leaders in more efficient artificial intelligence algorithms. So the UAE is developing AIs that are less compute intensive, less power intensive, and yet they deliver relatively similar performance, something about 90% of the performance of the leading models. So I thought Ramez did a good job of not only debunking some of the hype around the imminent advent of general intelligence, but he also pointed out some of the great advances that are happening on the ground in the UAE. And that was one of the things I thought was kind of cool, and I noticed the audience liked, is that these speakers from around the world, when they arrived, they didn't just come and talk about their subject of expertise. They made it relevant. They put it in the context of the Middle East, and in particular Dubai, as a trading hub and as a center that's attracting all this talent, and a city that's focused on the future. And so they tried to root their talks into the local vernacular. I thought that was quite powerful.
I find that the energy connection with AI is undersold or under-discussed in the US because of the whole climate change issue. Whereas, in China and the UAE, they just accept that, next generation energy technologies have to be a part of the solution. And we had a couple of great illustrations of that with Pablos, talking about both SMRs, small modular nuclear reactors, and beaming energy from space, the ether guys. UAE is big into sort of these next generation energies. We talked about the fact that China has deployed 500 gigawatts of solar in the last 2 years. That's almost twice what the US has done in the last 70 years. So, these nations like UAE and China understand that energy transformation is inexorably linked with AI. And, otherwise you're going to have citizens paying for, higher electricity costs as power becomes more selectively deployed on data centers and stuff like that. So, I think that was a really clear message too.
I agree. Here in the US, you sometimes get resistance to the energy expended on AI. People complain about it. But what they're not saying is that that's resource allocation. And obviously, if people think that this is an important way to apply those resources, clearly the people in the technology industry do believe that very strongly, then it's a rational thing to do. It's a rational expense to make. As for energy, I asked Ramez separately about solar because he didn't give a talk on energy. I wish he had. I wish we had time for him to do that because he is so eloquent on that subject. And I asked him about, some of the changes in the United States because we've just undone a lot of the commitments we had to renewable energy here. And he said, it'll make a dent in the growth. It's not going to stop it. It's not going to change the long-term trend because the cost is dropping so
The
fast.
commercials are, exactly.
They become really cheap.
Solar energy is clearly going to come to the fore. Mohammed, how important is renewable energy in the UAE? Famously, you're leaders in fossil fuel and energy from fossil fuels.
Well, actually, the UAE is looking about where to position itself post oil. So one of the visions that we have is by 2030, they want the UAE to be a knowledge-based economy. So post oil, renewable energies. And funny you should mention for renewable energy, we already have a conference going now called WETEX, which is all about renewable energy and water that they do every year. And they bring in all of these industries or companies from around the world, China, the US, Europe, just to showcase their technologies.
And there's no shortage of sunshine in the UAE. My goodness, it's a hot place. So plenty of room for solar panels.
Yeah.
So what's next? What lies in the future for this? Tell me what you have plans, or talk a little bit about how we envision this growing in the future.
Well, I can give you some of the hard numbers here because investment in solar projects in the UAE reached $6 billion in 2025, and they're looking to triple energy capacity by 2030, and a lot of that is going to come from renewable energy mix. So, and this, some of the biggest solar parks and solar plants in the world, the Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum Solar Park and Al Dhafra Solar PV, a couple of the biggest solar parks in the world that are being deployed there. So the aim for UAE is to be carbon neutral by 2050, but actually with the current investments, it looks like they're going to beat that.
Yeah.
Wow. Impressive.
I mean, the Mohammed Rashid Solar Park, if you're here in the winter, Brett or Rob, I can take you for a bicycle route around the solar panel park. There is an actual bicycle route around it.
Yes. That's not something I would do in the summertime when it's 130 degrees Fahrenheit.
Well, that's why I said winter, which, our winter is it's like, 80 or 85.
Yeah.
That sounds great. What's next for the Futurists events?
Well, we really did, I think, demonstrate success with the model. We had, as you pointed out repeatedly, Rob, we had 34 of the world's top futurist speakers attend the event from cities all around the world. We had, attendance was more than double what we had aimed for. We were hoping for 450. We had 1,000 attend the event, and many more register that we couldn't fit in. So, we really did show that there's a very strong potential for these types of conversations in the region. And, we announced the Saudi event, which is probably going to be in April, but we're still working on the final dates for that at the event. And, MasterCard, Rajanama, who was, of course, the CMO of MasterCard, was very positive about doing another event, both in Dubai and potentially offshore in like the US with the Futurists. So, we have a lot of demand coming now. We have people wanting to do it in Miami and in Poland and
China,
Mexico.
A lot of people in the audience were expressing interest in bringing this show up. One of the reasons for that is in those cities, they don't always get a cross section of experts. Often you'll have a conference focused on one thing like energy or, some sort of science or biotech, and you'll get all the experts on that subject. But I thought the beauty of this was that we had experts from a number of different fields, and very often there's some crosstalk, where those fields are adjacent or where they overlap a little bit. We would create a panel so you could get different perspectives. And that was what kept people engaged. And I heard from a number of people in the audience who said, I come to these events usually to hear a couple of the opening speakers, and then I go, but I ended up staying all the way till 5 p.m., till the end of the day, because it was so interesting. I've never been to an event like that before. So that seems like the formula seems to work, I would say. The reaction from the crowd was very positive. This idea of cross-section, multiple perspectives, multiple disciplines, multiple different countries. Like I said in the beginning, Brett, if you want to see the future, You can do it your way, which is to fly around the world and burn yourself out and get the flu and go to all these places and see it for yourself. Now, you do it. Thomas Friedman does it. A handful of people do that. Not everybody does. But that is one way to see the world. The other way is to bring the world to you. And I think that's what we're seeking to do with the Futurist Event Company, is to gather some of the brightest thinkers and the most innovative insights and bring them together and then see what happens when you put them together in the crucible of a live event. Well, gents, thanks very much for making time. Mohamed, I know it's late in Dubai. Thanks for staying up late for us to do this show. Very nice to see you again. Well done. Yeah. Congrats on the event. Brett, awesome to see you. Folks, you've been listening to The Futurists with Brett King and Rob Tercek, and this week our guest, Mohamed Alkhatib. Mohamed, is there a website where people can learn more about the event, or will we be posting the videos? I guess we could post them here to The Futurists.
Oh, we're going to post them on The Futurist, and also we're going to put them up on the www.futuristevent.com.
Very cool.
futuristevent.com, and then they can go there, press on the speakers, and go to each of the speakers, and hopefully it will lead them to their videos or their panels.
Sounds
That's
great.
the plan.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both for joining. And folks, we'll be back again next week with another person who is thinking about shaping and influencing the future as they envision it. And until then, Brett and I will see you in the future. Well, that's it for The Futurists this week. If you like the show, we sure hope you did. Please subscribe and share it with the people in your community. And don't forget to leave us a 5-star review. That really helps other people find the show. And you can ping us anytime on Instagram and Twitter at Futurist Podcast for the folks that you'd like to see on the show or the questions that you'd like us to ask. Thanks for joining. And as always, we'll see you in the future.